Grazie a tutti per essere intervenuti. Vi do questo piccolo messaggio di benvenuto. Io sono Biagio Semida, per chi non mi conoscesse, qua ci sono un po' di amici, diciamo, dell'università di Digitrend, di cui io sono CEO. Mi permetto soltanto di salutarvi. Oggi siete stati invitati da noi, dal professor Bavetta, che insieme a me, a Digitrend, al nostro team, ha iniziato questo percorso. Il mio compito è solo quello di darvi il benvenuto e di invitarvi a un'azione facile. Qua vedete alle mie spalle un codice QR, Innovation Island. Che cos'è Innovation Island? Forse qualcuno di voi lo saprà. Noi abbiamo organizzato come Digital e con il supporto dell'assessorato regionale alle attività produttive di alcune aziende che ci hanno dato sostegno, una iniziativa che sta riscuotendo sul territorio regionale un successo inaspettato, il premio Innovazione Sicilia. Abbiamo l'obiettivo, Digital è un'azienda che si occupa di editoria digitale e di trasformazione digitale nell'informazione. Abbiamo l'obiettivo di fare scouting di storie di impresa innovative, di unire i puntini dell'innovazione sulla nostra regione, di offrire alla Sicilia, a chi vuole crescere insieme a noi, diciamo, degli strumenti di informazione, di community building, diciamo di supporto alle attività delle imprese. Il 24 il concorso del premio innovazione è un concorso che scade domenica, giorno 12, abbiamo ricevuto centinaia di candidature, c'è un'organizzazione, se vi va poi online potete trovare delle informazioni, che si è attivata per valutare queste iniziative. Ci sarà un premio, ci sarà una cerimonia il 24 di novembre all'Ecomuseo del Mediterraneo, l'ex deposito locomotive di Sant'Erasmo, per chi non lo conoscesse, dove sì, ci sarà una cerimonia, ma sarà un'occasione diciamo, per discutere di come si finanzia l'innovazione, per accedere a qualcosa di nuovo, diciamo così, da parte degli imprenditori, degli aspiranti imprenditori, degli innovatori tutti, eccetera, eccetera. Che cosa nasce però quel giorno? Nascerà innovationisland.it, il giornale dell'innovazione siciliana, con ambizione di scalare anche, diciamo, il sud su questi argomenti, con un approccio tutto orientato alla community. Cioè noi oggi siamo qui per invitarvi a essere i primi attori di questa community, registrarvi, non inizieremo, mi suggeriva di dire proprio questo il professor Bavetta, se non vi registrate a questa piattaforma. È una piattaforma attraverso la quale voi potrete produrre e proporre contenuti, idee, segnalare eventi, ma soprattutto entrare in relazione con degli interessi tematici nell'ambito dell'innovazione e con interessi relazionali, perché scoprirete, se avrete voglia di partecipare a questi primi passi di costruzione, l'opportunità di entrare in diciamo, un piccolo social network tematico che in qualche modo ha l'obiettivo di rimediare a quello che noi rileviamo come il sovraccarico informativo, l'information overload, cioè sui social non si capisce più niente, non sempre si riesce a rintracciare gli interessi verticali e puntuali che riguardano la nostra professione piuttosto che la nostra ambizione culturale. Quindi io intanto ringrazio il professore Bavetta per averci dato l'opportunità di avere il professore Mudambi qui con noi. È un evento, diciamo, numero 0 di Innovation Island, questo è un evento collaterale al Premio Innovazione. Ci auguriamo di seguito a questa iniziativa di farne tante altre, di portare, diciamo, le migliori intelligenze in Sicilia a contatto con i più giovani, i più ambiziosi, quelli a cui consegniamo, diciamo, l'obiettivo di costruire una Sicilia migliore, e magari anche qualche imprenditore, qua è presente qualche imprenditore, mi auguro che in futuro ne siano presenti sempre di più. Quindi do la parola al professor Bavetta, vi ringrazio tutti perché do per scontato che vi state registrando. Grazie.
Thank you very much. We're now moving to English, of course, since our guest, we're honored to have him here, is from the United States, and he knows Italian, but he prefers to continue our conversation in English. So let me first, for those who weren't at the meeting at the university a few hours ago, let me first introduce Ram. Ram is a professor of international business and strategy at Temple University in Philadelphia, a city to which I'm deeply tied, as you know, where we have spent a lot of time in the past, high quality time in the past. RAM has written more than 100 articles in international outlets, which made him one of the top 100 academics in his own field. So he's a highly prominent academic, and we're honored to have him. I'm personally really thrilled of this opportunity and really humbled for your acceptance of our invitation. And his production, his scientific production, is mainly into innovation, into international business, into the role of multinational in increasing productivity and creating conditions for economic growth. So it's perfectly fit for the project that jointly with Biagio and Digitrend we are starting, namely a project to discuss about innovation, to discuss about entrepreneurship, and to create a community, which is an important aspect of our idea, because it is the condition that helps to create those links, individual links and institutional links that are important for allowing innovation to take place and allowing entrepreneurship to flourish. Just a few more words before we start our conversation. Part of the plan is to also develop courses for students and to create conditions for the students to access education which is not necessarily immediately available within their traditional courses. So you may see it as a sort of a environment where you find complementary information that might be useful for developing professional skills. So I think I very much hope that this is an enterprise that might be successful in the interest of our territory, our region, and especially in the interest, as you said, Biagio, before, of our students who are the future of this city and this region and this country in general. So this is the reason why we're here, and Ram is with us because we want to talk about a specific topic that he's been working on in the past. It's connected with innovation, very deeply with innovation, but it starts from a perspective which is more general than innovation. It starts from the perspective of what he calls the flow of knowledge. Flow of knowledge is essential for innovation, is a sort of a preconditions, among many others, of course, for innovation. And the structure that he has and the identification of how he moves around the world on a global scale, we're living in a globalized world anyway, it's helpful for understanding the conditions for innovation, it's helpful for understanding the path toward innovation that regions may actually undertake. So I think we might start, if you agree with me, Ram, on some general consideration which explain to our audience what flow of knowledge is and the relations that entertain with, no problem. It's a typical circumstance. I mean, that happens in Italy very often. So the relation between flow of knowledge and innovation. Okay? Thank you, Ram.
Thank you, Sebastiano. I think, thank you for that question, because I think it is it's very good to start at the basics, very fundamentals. I see here on screen the whole notion of Innovation Island. And I'd like to focus first of all on the distinction between the two words in English, innovate and innovation. Innovation, by definition, innovate is an act, innovation is a process. And so when we talk about innovation, it's not like a yes-no thing, it's a process. And when you talk about the relation between knowledge and innovation, which is a very fundamental question, and the question of flows and so on, I think what I'm going to give you is not my reading of it. This is what technology innovation scholars generally view innovation as, and it's called the innovation funnel. And the innovation funnel idea is that ultimately we start from, the innovation process is one which starts with broad things and it moves narrower, narrower, narrower till at the end it comes to the market. When we talk about, and in order to put your, to the issue of knowledge in context, I'm going to narrow it down a little bit. I'm going to focus on what we call commercial knowledge as opposed to knowledge as a whole. Commercial knowledge is basically used in the business, in the aspect of business and aspect of creating money, creating value. The innovation funnel starts with commercial knowledge, and commercial knowledge is typically created in the realm of what we call knowledge for knowledge's sake. The largest producers of commercial or basic knowledge, scientists, tend to be in universities and nonprofits, and not necessarily working in a for-profit setting. So this knowledge then percolates some of that ultimately to scientists working in firms. So we have interface between universities and firms. So, firms get this knowledge, what they find useful. They are a sieve. They say, well, all this idea is done in a university. Some of the stuff is useful for us. Bring it into the firm and spend money on it. That's the beginning of the innovation funnel, which we call R&D spending. R&D spending. So big companies spend R&D. R&D spending produces outputs, one of which is knowledge which firms determine is valuable. And when something is valuable, they want to protect it. In order to protect it, you need legal protection, and that's called a patent. So we have R&D spending, lots and lots of R&D spending. Some of that R&D spending produces patents, which is a narrower part. Some of those patents, we use those patents to produce products, new products, which the firm is going to bring to market. That's even narrower. And some of those new products will become successful and produce money, which feeds back into the R&D budget of the firm. Okay? So we have maybe hundreds of, take the case of Steve Jobs and Apple. They spent approximately $200 to $240 million of R&D spending in producing this thing that's rang right now, the first iPhone. And that eventually, it took 7 years, from 1998 to 2005. The iPhone first came on. The first year, the iPhone produced approximately $120 million of revenue, less in profit, obviously. But by 2008, 3 years later, the iPhone had broken even. And of course, today, the iPhone has made billions and billions of dollars and paid back all of those initial spending that Apple put into R&D in the beginning. So that's sort of, I guess, let me stop here. Because as you can see, that scientific knowledge, the universities are creating knowledge, R&D government labs, et cetera, are creating they're creating lots of knowledge, lots and lots of knowledge. And some of that is going to come into the firm.
Okay. So we now have a picture in which we know how knowledge is produced and in what sense it is used for commercial purposes. So we have restricted our picture. But the issue we really want to tackle tonight is a bit further ahead. What I'm aiming at is we have commercial knowledge, but this commercial knowledge doesn't reside always in the same place. It moves around, and in a global world, it looks for either applications or circumstances that might potentiate this knowledge itself. So I think it is important that not only we focus on what you call it the funnel of knowledge and the initial conditions that permit this knowledge to emerge, but also on how it chooses where to go and what kind of features emerge when it chooses where to go for the opportunities for innovation and growth in the territories where it goes.
I'll start off by saying that this is a people question to me. And in this world, you might ask in business for businesses, what is the shortest, what commodity is in shortest supply? What commodity, when you ask businesses, what is the thing that is the shortest supply for you? And many people, you might think as a layman or as an undergraduate, often people say, oh, money, for the shortest thing, the thing you really need, you don't have is money. But when you talk to senior executives, the thing that is in shortest supply is human brains. Yeah, and if you look at the production of knowledge over the last 200 years since the Industrial Revolution, by any measure. What we find is that we see a tremendous acceleration from 1980 or so onwards, accelerating faster from the late 1990s, early 1990s, and just going exponentially after the year 2000. And my explanation for this acceleration of knowledge production, of the shortening cycle of the product cycles are getting shorter and shorter. The rent-seeking period over which you can, when you create a patent, you create a temporary monopoly and you get money out of it, et cetera. These periods getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And my explanation for this is the rising connectivity. In the late 70s, we had China beginning to enter into the market economy. All of a sudden, beginning the release of 1 billion new brains. But then we have emerging economies beginning to come in by the Berlin Wall comes down in 1989. And we release hundreds of millions of new Eastern European brain. To the 90s, Asian economies begin to join the global economy. And so we're getting essentially an innovation process which was limited to the triad, North America, Western Europe, and Japan in 50s, 60s, 70s, to expanding it with hundreds of millions of new brains entering, and that has accelerated the innovation process. Big companies realize that the shortest supply is are smart people, and therefore we're going to go look for smart people wherever we can find them. And so you have these big multinational corporations setting up R&D centers in emerging markets throughout Asia, Singapore, Hong Kong, Indonesia, Thailand. Obviously, I would say India because I'm from India, but all of these innovation centers are joining the global innovation system. Within companies, you look at the global, I mean, I could show you maps and maps of any Fortune 500 company, Global 500 company, whether it is Philips in the Netherlands, Daimler-Benz in Germany. Just take the German example. I won't give a US example, would be the obvious one for me, but take Daimler-Benz. More than about 56% of R&D workers working for Daimler-Benz work outside of Germany. They're tapping into the global innovation system. And this is true for every company, including Huawei of China, for example, TCS of India. All of these companies are doing that. And so we're creating this global innovation highways, connectivity around the world, this web. And ultimately, every country needs to be connected in order for this knowledge is flowing along these highways. I don't know if that answers your question.
Absolutely, yes it does, yes it does. And I think it is important, I mean, since we having this conversation in Palermo, I think it is important to contextualize it a bit to the circumstances or the place where we are. And if you guys have a look at the picture that is available on the screen, you notice this is the European Innovation Scoreboard. It's a measure that is being constructed by the European Union, the European Commission, to assess the level of innovation in Europe. And in particular, the picture that is being shown, it looks at the regional differences in innovation in Europe. So the different colors, they pertain not to nations, but to regions within each nation. Okay, so the darker red, the worse the condition in innovation. The bluer, the better. So this flow of knowledge, which is globalized, is certainly in part responsible for the colors that we observe there. And since Sicily belongs, fortunately not to the darkest part, but anyway to the red, is there any way in which flow of knowledge could be helpful for creating conditions for innovation in the island and for creating conditions for an increase in productivity?
Obviously, everybody here knows Sicily far better than I. So for me to comment on Sicily would be too presumptuous. However, what I can talk about are success stories for regions which used to be peripheral, which have become central to the global innovation system. We can talk about the level of countries. We can talk about that the level of subnational, because Sicily is subnational, and that does create an additional level of complexity, as Carlo and I were talking about earlier. What's sometimes called the layer cake problem, because you have companies within a country, but success stories. We have success stories in Asia, but they might be too far away because, I mean, they're culturally different and so on. So let's stay in Europe. Probably the greatest success story in Europe in terms of innovation is Ireland. Ireland is a country of less than 4 million people. I'm not entirely sure of the population of Sicily, but so Ireland is smaller than Sicily in terms of population. In early 1980s, Ireland was the second poorest nation in Europe. Today, they're the second richest country in Europe. Idea Ireland had a very clear idea. And their idea was that we have to be connected to the global economy. And the global economy is dominated by giant companies, and giant companies have subsidiary networks. So we need to have a winning proposition to bring global giant companies to have subsidiaries located in Ireland. This Idea Ireland policy was promulgated in 1984. And if you look at the Irish economy, our per capita GDP, or almost any metric, you see a J-curve distinction. Ireland just after Idea Ireland implements this policy in 1984, it just does a takeoff. Now, a lot of people have dismissed this, so saying, oh, it's just taxes. The Irish reduced taxes to 10%, and European tax rates were 38%, and corporation tax rate was the only reason, and so on and so forth. But the reason is, but that's only part of the story, because taxes are simply cost. It's the cost of doing business. The Irish began by becoming part of the PC production system. They produced PCs, manufacturing, began by manufacturing. By the late 90s, literally 8 years later, by the early 1990s, they were outcompeted by all the Asian locations in terms of cost of production. All PC production left Ireland in the early and went to Asia. Did the Irish economy collapse? And the answer is no, it did not collapse. What happened was that by the time this happened, 6, 8, 10 years had passed, these subsidiaries had become embedded in the Irish infrastructure. And they moved manufacturing away from Ireland, but the subsidiaries remained. They moved up the value chain to start producing knowledge, becoming more R&D intensive. So today, Ireland is a knowledge economy. They have no manufacturing at all. None of these, Google goes to Ireland. We toured Google Ireland. They don't produce anything. It's all knowledge, all R&D, right? So they become part of the knowledge economy. So the point is that once you have these things in place, the ecosystem begins to develop. They start putting roots down. You might lose certain activities, but you don't, so long as you have an environment which is highly knowledge productive, and I think Sicily has that. You have the University of Palermo, you have very good universities all through Sicily. You're producing young people who are knowledge intensive. The capabilities are there. I mean, maybe some language skills might be necessary to English being the language of global business and so on, but these are small things that can be addressed.
I would like to go back to the problem of brains. Maybe, unfortunately, I start to think more and more about brain and age, just because I'm not more young, so I have to think about that. And you know, there is a very well-known distinction between the fluid intelligence, that is the one which is more connected, let's say, or more related to innovation, and that usually decreases with age, and the crystallized intelligence, which is the one that me and Sebastiano start to share together now, since we are growing older and older. And so my question is, what do you think can be the impact on the flow of knowledge in terms of an aging society? You know that Italy is I think, is the second most older country in the world after Japan. And also, I think that's the problem that is connected to migration. We were talking about that. So the fact that we need people from other places because we need younger people that can perform better than us in a lot of different things. There is a very famous book by Carlo Maria Cipolla in which he says that when the people from 15 to 24 start to go abroad, then the decline of a region starts very, very fast. So what can be the impact of an aging society on the flow of knowledge and on innovation?
Thank you very much, Carlo. That's an excellent point, and obviously a thorny one, and not an easy answer. All of Europe is aging, and all of Europe, that may be part of the whole entrepreneurial issue within Europe. But this is not just, I think there are two parts to the, nobody has a perfect answer. I mean, there's no perfect answer to that. But there are two parts to addressing the issue. One I think is leverage, and the other you mentioned is migration. Leverage is the idea that ultimately you have fewer young people, but you only need very, very few. You need to tap the best. And there's incredible leverage, right? So ultimately, 1 or 2 or 3 successful entrepreneurs can create 10,000 jobs, 20,000 jobs, 50,000 jobs. So you don't need lots and lots of people. You just need to have a fertile environment. Now, Pietro Navarra and I have a paper called Soil and Seeds. So you need seeds, but you need soil, you need fertile soil. If you throw seeds on an institutional environment, which is not welcoming, they just will die. Nothing will grow, right? So you need a fertile environment, and if you don't have seeds, then a fertile environment is just manure. Right? It doesn't smell good. So you need both. So if you have a fertile environment, if you even have fewer young people, as long as you're getting the process going, the ecosystem is functioning, then it becomes something self-sustaining, and it becomes attractive, because then people want to come, right? People want to come from other parts of Europe. Now, there is, I think, migration. One big issue with making migration successful is assimilation into the local ecosystem. And if assimilation is difficult, people who have difficult time assimilating are going to have a less, even if they have great human capital, they'll have a more difficult time becoming successful. So you need to think about it in a sort of targeted fashion. Well, who are the people who are most likely to assimilate well into our ecosystem if we give a good environment? Maybe people from Spain, maybe people from Latin America, who are closer to us culturally, and who are therefore likely, will be attracted. If we have a good environment, it's going, then people will say, I want to go to Catania because there is exciting things going on there. And again, it's all the things, we mentioned this earlier, Carlo, the snowball. Once the snowball gets rolling, then it develops momentum, becomes unstoppable, right? But you can't, but you've got to get the process going.
There's an issue that I think we shouldn't miss, and perhaps it would be useful to go back to. You said a few minutes earlier that your knowledge of the Italian circumstances is not as good, perhaps, as many others. Nonetheless, you have published a research, a very interesting research with some Italian co-authors on the circumstances of our country and how knowledge flows in and out of our country, and how this flow of knowledge is connected with the global environment where knowledge is produced. And I have a picture, and the picture is behind you. I'm sure you recognize it because it's taken from one of your papers, and on which you perhaps might want to dwell and explain a bit what is the meaning of these blue and yellow or orange circles, and in what sense these circles explain how knowledge flows and how it affects innovation.
So yes, I do in fact know that map fairly well, and my colleague, my co-author Alba Marino was very instrumental in producing that data in that map. Essentially, what we show there, the blue picture, blue dots are what we call the reaching in process, and this is knowledge that is created and owned by non-Italian companies using Italian inventors. Reaching in. Foreign companies reaching into the Italian knowledge system using Italian inventors to create knowledge. orange or yellow circles, Racha, they are basically Italian companies utilizing Italian knowledge and foreign knowledge to create, in other words, leveraging the Italian knowledge ecosystem. So in other words, it's Italian companies leveraging the Italian brains along with the global knowledge system to create new knowledge. Foreign companies leveraging Italian brains to create new knowledge, leveraging it with their global knowledge bases. And what we show is that Italy, between 1975 and this century, over 40 years, has becoming more connected to the global innovation system, but almost all of it, vast majority of it, is actually driven by foreign companies, not Italian companies. But the map, I think this is what, more to your point, foreign companies, as you can see, when we look at the process more recently, from 95 to 2014, you can see that foreign companies reaching into the Italian knowledge hotspot is getting deeper and wider, right? There are more and more blue circles. But the blue circles are all over Italy, north, middle, and south, whereas the orange circles are mainly concentrated in the north. In other words, the Italian companies are remaining constrained within the northern industrial districts, traditional industrial districts, whereas foreign companies are much more capable, have leveraged Italian brains in the south far more. So this means basically that the South it's not that there are not smart people in the South. There is a lot of smart knowledge, and there are a lot of brains in the South. Foreign companies are seeing that, right? That's why we see all those, in spite of your EU picture of Sicily, we have a lot of blue dots in Sicily. Foreign companies using Sicilians to create knowledge. So the potential is there, is my point. And foreign companies are seeing that. And I don't want to criticize Italian companies, but certainly all I want to use this map to say is that the potential is there.
One last question from me. I think that the audience would be interested in asking something.
Let me ask one last question, and that is to both of you, actually. You are in Sicily. Does it matter to you if a company were to come in and say, we're going to hire 200 engineers to create a new R&D center in Palermo? Do you care if it's an Italian company or a German company or an American company? Does it bother you? So similarly, I don't care. I mean, if they're Italian or foreign, I don't care. As long as they create jobs and create wealth.
Maybe one last question, maybe connected to this aspect of reaching out. So sometimes maybe it's easier when you are multinational, you can come and tap the pool of talent, but sometimes you cannot grow very much when you are based in Italy, maybe, and that's the question that I'm asking you, maybe because we have something that, especially in the South, you made in this paper, there is this distinction very interesting between periphery and core, the center, and so for sure, Sicily and the South in general is periphery in the Italian economy. So I think that maybe if we go back to the institutional quality of the territories and what is connected to cultural factor, to social capital, we have talked about that this afternoon, talking about migration. So we know that from Banfield, amoral feminism towards all the study of Guiso, Tabellini, and Zingales with the less social capital in the South. Do you think that the relationship between social capital, institutional quality is something that can affect the probability that the Italian company, as let's say, are less supported? In some sense, they are less capable of going out and reaching out toward the world because they are less, let's say, secure. They have something that they miss behind their back.
I mean, that's certainly possible. I'm not we have not looked at the why question, so it's a very hard question that you're posing to me. Why some companies reach out more than others. I think to some extent it has to do with mindset. We did some other work on Silicon Valley where we looked at early stage software companies which had become fairly big and later stage companies. And we found that early stage companies tended to do very little global knowledge sourcing. Even companies like Facebook and Autodesk and I think a few others that we looked at, which were multi-billion-dollar companies at the time, they were not actually, at the time in 2015, they had no R&D centers outside the US. Subsequently, that's changed, and now they have moved on. But there's definitely a mindset of, there's nothing out there for us to tap into. That can often be an issue. The overall international mindset of companies is fairly important. If you look at the European picture, and I don't want to take too much time, the countries that have the most number of very successful multinational companies tend to be countries that have very small home markets. So you think of the three European companies that have the most number of very successful big multinational companies, and they are the Netherlands, Switzerland, and Sweden. Right? All of these countries have less than 10 million population. And so Nestlé and Volvo and Philips, you can think of laundry list of giant companies all based in these tiny countries. Because they have to be international right from the go, because the home market is so small. For many Italian companies, Italy is not that big, but it's big enough. Brazil has, all my Brazilian colleagues tell me that Brazilian companies really have this problem, because Brazilian market is so big. The Brazilian companies don't feel a need to go abroad, because nobody speaks Portuguese, except Portugal. And we can sell lots of stuff in Brazil, so it's just too complicated for us to go anywhere else.
You guys probably do not know, but Ram is not only a very successful economist, he's also a very successful novelist. He wrote novels, and you can find actually those novels available in Amazon. Some of them are very entertaining, and I would recommend you to read them, and written in very beautiful English prose. We are here in the Teatro Massimo of Palermo. Teatro Massimo of Palermo is a place where performing arts have reached the highest level in this region, and performing arts presuppose a lot of creativity, which is not, of course, commercial knowledge, but is certainly connected to knowledge. So just to conclude our conversation in a light tone, what is the relationship between creativity? How important is creativity for innovation? In what sense we can, as university professors, stimulate creativity with our students and allow them to make use of it in their careers and produce maybe new unicorns?
Thank you very much, and thank you for bringing up my novel writing, which is my passion and very close to my heart. My novels are all in English, unfortunately, and I haven't yet found an Italian translator. So, but I'm happy to talk to anybody who is so interested. Let me take slight issue with what you mentioned. There is an entire branch of scholarly endeavor, as you probably know, focusing on the economics of the arts. There is a lot of commercial art. Movies are an obvious example. J.K. Rowling is an example, obviously, of somebody who's made billions of dollars writing novels. So clearly creativity, and J.K. Rowling has always said in every interview from the very first get-go that she only wrote to make money. She was not writing for art. There's no question of writing art. I was starving and I wanted to make money. I was writing novels to make money. And she has been very successful, billions of dollars doing that. So, and Steven Spielberg creates art, but he creates money. So there is definitely a very similar funnel in the creative art situation, right? I mean, Riccardo Muti is makes a lot of money. All the great sopranos make a lot. People who sing in this theater, many of them, I'm sure, also make a lot of money. So there is definitely money to be made. And there's a very big commercial aspect to art. We all know that every Renaissance painter, they loved doing what they were doing, but they also they did it for the money. They went to Dukes, and they didn't go and paint in the gutter, right? So the creativity definitely involves a lot of money. I think there is very similar to science. There is science for science sake, where people are studying quasars or pulsars or whatever, the distant galaxies or atoms or whatever, or biologies and so on, where they just are curious, interested in the science and not interested in making money. The same thing is true in art, right? There are some people, like in the movies, in Hollywood, they are only interested in the money, right? Okay, I'm interested in art, but I only want to make money out of this. And if it doesn't make money, I don't want to make it. I'm not going to make it. And there are lots of people who in the word of Richard Caves, art for art's sake, who just create art because they love creating art, right? So there's that as well. Now, I would say that in the arts world, the creativity world of art that you're talking about, the percentage of people who do art for art's sake is far bigger than the percentage of people who do science for science sake. And the funding for science sake is significantly bigger than the funding of arts for art's sake, right? So ultimately, if you're in your university, think of the budget for the physics department versus the budget for the department of painting. Right? I mean, in Rome, people say, yes, we need a physics department. We're going to put money into physics. We need a painting department. Oh, well, maybe. Right? So there's much less money involved for that. But clearly, there's a lot of creativity involved in that. And I think the difference between art and science is a question of degree, not of kind.
Thank you very much. Thank you to everybody who's been here tonight, and thank you to Biagio for having organized all this wonderful event. Innovation Island, 24th of November. In the meanwhile, just take a picture of the QR code and enroll. Thank you very much. A good evening for everyone. Bye.